Oh my gosh, this is gonna be like my 50th try. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah! 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 Get your butt whooped! Oh, yeah! Finally, when I die at the end of my long and eventful life, they can put on my grave, this man accomplished absolutely nothing in his life. Do you want a challenge that pushes you to the edge of your limits? How about an epic journey that will pit you against treacherous foes that will seek your death without pause? Well, if you do, then prepare to get wrecked! Cause Super R-Type makes being pushed to the limit of your death look like a little baby cakewalk. This ain't the Space Girl Scouts, son. That being said, I'm very humbled to have gotten to play this game, because not only is it one of the best side-scrolling shooter games that I've ever played, it is also, in spite of its difficulty, one of the best games I've ever played, featuring solid mechanics, design, and difficulty. Let's start off by getting the plot out of the way. An easy task since it's the most basic of basic. Essentially, it just follows the X wants to kill Earth, and Y must stop it, whereas you, the R9 ship, are the Y, and the X is the evil extraterrestrial Bido Empire. You'll fly through 7 themed levels, fighting a unique boss at the end of each one. By the time you get to the end of the 7th, you fight the evil fetus monster called Womb in an epic showdown where you and ships that you free from Womb's clutches battle the evil alien until its defeat, saving the world. But this is a side-scrolling shooter, so storyline doesn't matter all that much. What we're here to do is fly a ship through space and blow stuff up. Through the game's mechanics, you'll have plenty of opportunity to blow things up, via various power-ups that your ship can pick up, but you'll do that in almost any side-scrolling shooter. So what makes this one so good? Well, it's going to seem silly or small at first, but the source of one of the most ingenious mechanics, as well as the source of one of the biggest compliments I have for this game, comes in the form of this little piece of machinery called the Force. And no, that's not the Force, with a capital T on the word the. Its name is just Force. This little thing is first class, and gives the players so much freedom and creativity when they plan out how to solve getting past each level. The way it works is that if your ship doesn't have a power-up, the first one that you pick up actually doesn't give you the power, it instead sends the Force onto the level, floating behind you. If you crash into it, it will attach itself to your ship, and the next time you pick up a power-up, the Force will emit a special attack, which can be upgraded one more time by grabbing yet another power-up. But we're just getting started. You see, anytime the Force is attached to you, you can jettison it in the direction that it's facing, which has many applications offensively. You can use it to snag parts of a boss that are difficult to reach, you can tag special enemies that drop power-ups that you may have missed, and you can generally use it as a secondary attack to supplement your main gun. Oh, but don't worry about a total loss in firepower when it's detached though, as depending on how many power-ups you've collected, it will cover you with varying degrees of fire. Managing the Force is a little tricky at first. Okay, I'm sorry, that line. Managing the Force is a little tricky at first, but very intuitive, to the point where you'll be pulling off awesome stunts and strategies in a very short amount of time once you grasp the concept that you can sort of be in 2 places at once, and you can split your fire to cover multiple fronts. As you've seen, you can also attach the Force to the rear of your ship, which creates an insanely awesome amount of strategy involving its position on your ship. There are many viable strategies for each level, but as you lock down a pattern for each one, you'll find certain parts of the game where you feel more comfortable with the Force at the front or the rear of your ship. This is because I failed to mention that the Force is also a shield, which not only damages and potentially destroys enemies that try and get through it, but it also blocks the standard bullets in the game that a lot of the enemies fire. As you play, you'll get really good at swapping back and forth, preparing yourself quickly so that you have an advantage in the face of the next danger. Super R-Type is the first game I've played with this kind of mechanic, and I love it! It's a perfect balance of skill and reward. Manipulating the Force is not as simple as just hitting a button and watching the game play out as cinematic. You have to manipulate its position with your position, call it back at the right times, and be able to handle protecting your own ship when you detach it from yours, since your ship is more vulnerable when you do so. However, if you can pull it off, you'll come out ahead, and it feels really rewarding. Just compare it to a lot of other side-scrolling shooters. Not to pick on them, but typically if you want to cover your rear, you have to take some sort of backwards firing weapon beforehand, and it guarantees that later on, at certain sections when you need a weapon that fires forward, you're just out of luck, or vice versa. That's not the case with Super R-Type. The game benefits you from your in-game decisions in the moment that you make them, which makes me so happy. But only Sith deal in absolutes, so let me give you another reason to be excited for the gameplay. I'm sure you've noticed it already, but your ship has a little charge bar at the bottom. That's because no matter how many power-ups you have, your ship always has its basic gun, which can charge up to varying degrees of power, which at its peak release a devastating barrage of energy. In a stroke of genius though, the developers did not let the player hold on to a fully charged shot, which means that once again you have to think about your strategy going into a situation and time out your charges with accuracy and technique rather than just your ability to hold down a button. Sometimes it's better to try and be accurate with the weaker charge, as you just don't have enough time for the larger one. Other times you'll even just want to stick with your pea shooter, as the enemies are too numerous and agile to make a fully charged shot worth it. This adds yet another level of tactics that the player must think about, that in turn the game will reward if handled correctly. Speaking of things handled correctly, the overall design of the game was definitely handled well, as it is creative, interactive, and easy to understand. The environments aren't breathtaking, but are bright, colorful, and detailed enough to warrant a look or two. Likewise, the level design is pretty decent, with enough hazards and traps to keep you excited when you enter a new stage. The best part of the design though by far is that almost every enemy in the game has some sort of trick or nuance that makes them identifiable and unique, many of which interact with the player directly. The gears in the mining field level will follow a set path while firing at you, unless of course you break them apart, upon which they bounce to the nearest wall and begin traveling along a new and unscripted route. The gargoyles in the Baido Empire level can take a lot of punishment, but couple that with the fact that they slow down when you shoot them forces you into making a decision. Do you try and take them out one by one quickly? Do you stop firing altogether so that they pass off the screen faster? Or maybe do you need to shoot a couple of them to slow them down to create a safe part of the screen to pass through? My favorite enemy design though, and perhaps one of the simplest, are the fish machines in the cave level. A lot of times in side-scrolling shooters, I think we as players get a little spoiled because we can solve a lot of our problems just by shooting and blowing them up quicker than they can get to us or even react. That's not the case with the fish, because the moment that they are destroyed, they accelerate forward at whatever angle they are facing and enter into an invincible state. This is yet another instance where the game will reward you for careful planning, or a case where you are your own worst enemy, as a carelessly aimed and happy trigger finger can suddenly create several invincible projectiles that are flying at you, making your day a little more difficult. And trust me, this game does not need the help. This game is hard. Not only is it widely considered to be one of the most difficult games for the SNES, but it gets my personal seal as being one of the hardest games I've played in my life. And I make it my business to play games that are hard. Oh gosh, why do I keep dying? It's like looking back at the last 25 years of my life and realizing they mean nothing! In spite of this, Super R-Type's difficulty is what turns a well-made game into a killer adventure. You see, this game is the best kind of hard, because every time you die, you don't get mad. Okay, sometimes you get mad. But even if you do get mad, you eventually pause and humble yourself, because not only do you know that it was your fault that you died, but you can clearly see what you were supposed to do to avoid it. I cannot stress how vital this is to truly make a game that is simultaneously high quality and difficult. We as gamers like to throw around the phrase hard very generally, as a descriptor of something in a game that inhibits our wanted progression. After losing a max power ship by making one mistake in Gradius and having to start out back at rock bottom with a barely functional ship halfway through a level, we describe the game as hard, when really it's not hard, it's just unfair. In SimCity, when we can't figure out how to beat a level because we don't know what the game wants from us, the game isn't hard, it's unclear. In Super R-Type, when we get hit by a laser that a boss shoots when we fly parallel to it because we should have considered it in relation to our position while charging up a timed energy blast while also repositioning the force module so that it is behind us, giving us the ability to block bullets and or be used as an offensive weapon should we get close enough to the boss to use it as such, then we can truly call the game hard. We knew that the laser was going to fire from the boss. It was obvious. It was our fault for not planning to avoid it when we flew into its range. The only part of the game that I could even remotely critique as being the wrong kind of hard is the last level, where things do get a little ridiculous, and if you don't memorize where the enemies are going to come from, the chance of you dying with little ability on your part to react does exist. It is the last level though, and so I feel like the game gets a little bit of leeway on being unfair. However, once you master the patterns and make it through all the slimies, manglers, and ridiculous amount of gargoyles, and manage to beat the last boss, victory will be yours, and finally you'll feel great as those sweet, sweet credits roll. What you're seeing here are just the normal credits though. Apparently beating the game 2 levels higher than the difficulty I had it set to will grant you access to the special credits, where the pilot of the R9 9 ship arrives back home and closes the hangar door on his ship, as if to give one last goodbye to his trusty spacecraft. Wait, what's that? You want me to go back and get the ending so that you can see it? Look it up on YouTube. No, seriously, I'm not doing it. You can call me a pansy all you want, but I think I might actually die in real life if I try and beat this game on pro mode. I've had quite enough of getting my face raked over the coals for 1 week. Okay. But so while I may not have even attempted a pro mode run, as far as I'm concerned, this game gets an A+, and I wholeheartedly ask that if you like side-scrolling shooters and you like an intense challenge, that you try this game out. You're probably going to love it. Take it from me, you're talking to a guy that was up until 4 AM in the morning for 2 days straight, trying the same damn level over and over again, and despite this, I can sit here and sincerely tell you that even now the idea of putting the cartridge in and going another round with the game sounds like fun. Either way, thanks for watching. This is Chezni at SNES Legacy, considering seeking psychological help for masochism, signing off.